You know, what's happening behind me here happens every day all over America. That's a relatively new asphalt shingle roof that's getting replaced because of some damage. On the build show today, we're gonna go through a couple of keys that you need to know about if you're putting a new asphalt shingle roof on your house. They're gonna make your roof so much more bomber than the standard roof. We're gonna get into the fortified details. We got lots of good nerdy details for you today. Today's build show is sponsored by Atlas Roofing Products. Let's get going. Let me introduce you to Fred Malik. Fred is the head guy at Fortified, which is a program through the IBHS. Fred, talk to me about what we need to know about roofs. You know, when the wind, when the hail, when the hurricanes come, which happen all over the country, how do we make sure that we don't have damage to our houses?
No, Matt, first of all, let me say thanks for having us here, because, we know that you and the builders that you talk to are really interested in doing really durable roofs for your customers.
Totally.
And so we're here to help you. So what Fortified does is it takes a look at all those things that make a roof vulnerable, from the roof deck right on up to the roof cover. Okay. And so what we're going to see today is what you have to do at each step to make that roof more resilient.
Now, Fred, why are those things important, and what kind of damage can occur to a house?
Well, that's a good question, because there's a ton of different damage modes that we've seen over the last 20 years or so that we've been researching this. And it all starts with the roof deck. And what can happen is if the roof deck isn't properly attached, and even if it's not the right thickness, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later, but the wind can actually create enough pressure to pull the deck right off the house. It's like tearing the lid off of a can, right? What's going to happen? All that water is going to pour right in. So our first goal is to keep that roof deck on to prevent that from happening.
Okay.
If we keep the roof deck on, now you might have roof shingles coming off, and typically what happens with a standard roof is the underlayment goes right with it. You've seen that, I've seen that.
For sure.
Anybody in the country who's seen a roof damaged, you see blue tarp on it, that's because the roof cover and the underlayment's gone.
Yeah, it's almost like a tear-off like we're seeing here,
exactly
right? Where you just have bare OSB or plywood. If that happens in a storm, your house is toast, right?
Yes, and it doesn't even have to be that significant. It only takes a very small area to allow a tremendous amount of water in. And once that water gets in, the life for the people who live there is going to be really upended.
So how does that water get in if we don't have a cover on? What's the main method for water intrusion?
So most decks like this is an OSB deck or if a plywood deck, most of the time you have spacers in there, right? Because we've got to allow for expansion and contraction of that material. So those designed gaps can add up to a tremendous amount of area that's not protected, and that water just flows in there at a rate you would not believe. We got some really cool video on our website that shows how that water just cascades in there.
I bet it's just raining in the house.
It is, and some of us have been in the houses when it's going on, and you see the water pouring out of light fixtures and ceilings collapsing. It's terrible, and it's all preventable. That's the key, is that we can really cut down on that a lot by paying attention to how the roof underlayment is installed.
And what's cool about what we're talking about, Fred, is this could be a remodel, meaning like we've got here. This is a 10-year-old house that's getting a new roof. We can actually do several things to make this old house meet the Fortified program, right?
Yeah, and that's a great point, that it doesn't have to be new construction. You can do a lot to mitigate your risk, whether you're on the coast or you're in someplace like Austin, like where we are today. You can do a lot when you're re-roofing to lower your risk of being severely impacted by a storm. Yeah. So yeah, this is a perfect example of what you can do on a re-roof.
So let's talk first about the roof deck itself then. I think this is 7/16 OSB. What do we need to know about that or other decking materials?
Yeah, so for a roof, particularly of this vintage, 7/16 is the absolute minimum. If you have 3/8, you really got to strongly consider, especially for Fortified, you've got to consider redecking.
Yeah, it's just not strong enough.
No, and like I said in the earlier part there, the wind pressure can exert enough force on that, it can actually pull the deck up over the head of the nail. It's an awesome phenomenon to see what Mother Nature can do. But if you start with something that's 7/16, then it's a matter of how you're fastening it. Okay. And the critical part is the type of fastener you use. And in our standard details, we have a bunch of standard details that are available for free on our website. In our standard details, we call out an 8D ring shank nail.
Okay.
Right? And those rings on that shank really can double the uplift capacity of that fastener.
And then, of course, there's a specific pattern of how many, what on center they are, right?
Yep.
So you could take an existing roof like this that probably wasn't framed 10 years ago to that standard and upgrade it with just a nail gun with some ring shank nails.
Yeah. So again, a very inexpensive way of dramatically improving the durability of the roof.
Now, if you were building new, though, Fred, someone watching this who's a new builder, and they're building to your program standards, what other options might they have?
Well, in terms of roof deck attachment, I mean, 8D ring shank nails at a good pattern. So here where we are, 8D ring shank nails at 4 inches on center is going to be an extremely durable roof for a new construction roof.
Yeah, but they could also upgrade to like 5/8 OSB,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
That's where I
Or
was going
even
next.
5/8 plywood.
Yep. Now going to a thicker roof decking doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a wider fastener spacing.
Okay.
But the thicker the roof deck, the more meat that you have there for the nail to hold on to, the better you are.
Means that nail's not going to rip out as
Yeah.
easily, right?
Now, once you go beyond 5/8, though, you do have to start paying attention to the length of your fastener, because one of the most important factors is how much of that nail actually is getting into the structure below.
Got it.
So 3/4 and up, you've got to really make sure that you've got a long enough fastener.
Okay, so it starts with the roof deck. We need a good deck, and we need it nailed properly. What's next?
Yeah, and just to reiterate, there's a lot of stuff that we're talking about, and for those folks that are trying to keep up with all these details, go get the standard details off our website at fortifiedhome.org. We've got it all laid out for you, simple diagrams and stuff that you can follow.
I'll have links to that below, guys. That'll all be below.
Yep. So once you have the roof deck attached, now you have an option to do something we call a sealed roof deck.
Okay.
We really sort of pioneered this into the Fortified program. You're starting to see it find its way into building codes. Essentially what we're doing is we're replacing the standard underlayment, and we're putting something that's going to be more durable there in case the roof cover fails.
Okay.
It's a belts and suspenders kind of approach.
It's like your under roof, basically, right?
Under roof, yeah, sure. That's a good one. But when we've studied this, we look at what are the types of damage and what are the kinds of losses that people are suffering, and the by and large, the bulk of the damage that happens is from water intrusion once the roof cover fails. The roof cover is expensive to replace. Don't get me wrong, but once that water gets in,
it's way more money.
Another level.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother
And
level.
now we're talking all the sheetrock could be damaged. We could have mold issues. We could have
Furniture,
all the
clothing,
insulation. That's right, all the contents.
Heirlooms, anything you're storing in your attic.
Yeah, it's gone.
It
Destroyed.
can be destroyed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's preventable. So
Okay, so then what are the options for sealed roof deck?
yeah, so we've got several, and because we understand that different places, there's different things that are available in different locations. So we've got a couple of different options for you. Probably the most prolifically used option is something called tape and underlayment.
Okay.
So you can get a 4-inch wide tape that's rated to be on the roof. Again, we've got all kinds of good details for you and a list of products that are available. You apply the tape to all the horizontal and vertical seams, and then you come back over top of it with a really tear-resistant underlayment.
Okay, so not just the basic, 15-pound felt as we've called it for years, but something that's a little thicker and a little more bomber.
Yeah,
right?
and not even just a little bit thicker. I mean, there's a big difference between a true 30-pound felt, even synthetics, which we're going to see installed today. Remember, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make sure that sealed roof deck stays in place even if that roof cover goes,
Yep.
right? And so tape and underlayment is one method. In certain locations, a fully adhered membrane can be a really great option. I know you do that a lot.
peel and stick or
Yeah.
a whip, water and ice protection, right? I've done a bunch of those over the years.
Yeah, so a fully adhered membrane over the entire deck. It's relatively simple. There's not a lot of training you have to do for your guys. It's more expensive.
Yeah, it is more expensive.
And there's some consequences you have to be aware of in terms of the breathability of the roof. But fully adhered membrane is one. And then another, if you're doing something like metal or tile, you can use 2 layers of 30-pound felt. And you can get a really good performance out of that as well.
Okay. Now, what do we do if we're not hammer tacking that down? What are the methods to attach that?
Yeah, the best way to do it, particularly in a location here like we are here in Austin and in most coastal areas, is to use a 1-inch button cap nail. So
Okay.
it's a plastic 1-inch washer with a nail that goes through the center of it. You put those at 12 inches on center in the field and 6 inches at all your laps, and that keeps that material from billowing and tearing and pulling up over top of that nail. That's what keeps it in place.
So the button is giving more surface area, but not just a staple, a nail on that button, so that it really is attached well to the deck. Is that right?
The nail is a pretty important feature because that round head, that full round head, makes it harder for that button cap to be pulled over top of that. And really what we're worried about is when the underlayment is loose enough, the wind gets under it and it starts to billow.
Yeah.
And when it billows, it pulls those fasteners out and then it just peels off in big sheets.
Gotcha. You know, another one that I've used too, Fred, including my own house, was I used the Huber zip system.
Sure.
I did their brown 5/8 and then I taped all the seams, and that would also qualify, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's a good point. So there are systems like that have a tape and then a water-resistant barrier that's already adhered to the roof decking. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those systems work well, and we do accept those in our program.
Okay. So now we've got a sealed roof deck with those options. What do we need to know about actually attaching the roof membrane, those Atlas shingles? How do we attach those, and what do we need to know about that?
There's one more detail before we get to that point. I love how excited you are. You're ready to get right to the roof cover. The edge details are critically important too.
Okay.
Right. So at the edge where you're starting at whether it's the eave or going up the rake, you really want to make sure if you're using a shingle roof that you have a starter shingle, a manufacturer approved starter shingle. Now they come in a couple different varieties. You can have those that are mechanically attached. They have a sealant that's out towards the edge of the roof that makes that first layer really bond well. Or there are other starter shingles out there now that are peel and stick. So they're coming to roll. You peel off a backing and you can roll it all the way out and fully adhere it down. So it really does a great job of attaching to the deck. And now you've given a really good anchor point for the edge. And when we study the way roof covers fail, particularly shingle roof covers, typically they are failing at the edge because there's a phenomenon when wind moves across a roof, the highest pressures that are exerted on the roof are at the edges and at the rake.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, at the ridge. Rake too, but so there's a right down there at the eave, going up the rake, and at the ridge, that's where your highest pressures are. So we want to make sure that gets locked in.
Makes sense.
So that combined with a drip edge gives us a really solid anchor at the edges. Then we can install the actual shingles.
Got it. Okay, now let's transition to shingles. What do we need to know about shingles? Their ratings, their impacts, sizing, any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. So there's a myriad of shingles that are out there. Some of the ones that we're going to talk about today, Atlas makes a really good product, both from a wind perspective and from an impact resistant perspective if you are looking to get that kind of durability out of your roof. Now, wind ratings of shingles are pretty standardized. There's only two standards that are referenced. Just about every shingle that's available today meets those standards. ASTM D3161 is one. You're basically making sure that they're properly wind rated for your location. And if you are interested in impact resistance, then you're looking for a shingle that is, I'm gonna toot our own horn a little bit here. IBHS came out with an impact rating test last year. Atlas is our top performing shingle on that list.
Right. Wow.
We publish this list for free online. And if you choose a good or excellent impact rated shingle from that list, you're gonna have exceptional performance from up to 2-inch hail.
Wow. Dang. Now, what are the shingle manufacturers doing to give those higher ratings? I always think of where the shingles overlap each other. There's that strip of kind of asphalt if you look at the back.
Sure.
Is that making a difference so that wind isn't able to peel the roof off?
Yeah, so the key from a wind perspective by far for shingles is how well those individual courses of shingles seal to one another. Mm-hmm. If there's no seal there and the wind can get under and you start to see tabs flapping, that roof doesn't have very long.
Yeah.
You know, it will start to pull off, and when it pulls off, it will pull off in sheets, because undoubtedly there will be areas that are sealed. So it's really important to get a high quality shingle that's got good sealant on it.
Okay.
And then when you're talking about impact resistance, there's a new way of manufacturing shingles called polymer modified. They're becoming more and more common. Most of the shingles that are on our list for impact resistance are polymer modified. Basically what that means is there's some additives that they put in the asphalt that make the asphalt more pliable and more stable so that it comes back to its original form when the wind load in the impact of the ice is that pressure is no longer there, or that stress is no longer there. It returns back to its normal shape. Now that doesn't mean that you get a dent and then it fully heals itself. It just means it can absorb that impact a bit better. I'm sure that when you've talked to your clients about impact rated roofing, you've talked about class 4, because that's what the building code is referred to for ages, is class 4 impact rating. Well, class 4 is an interesting test in that when it's tested, it's material that's taken pristine off the line, a steel ball is dropped on it or a solid sphere of ice is dropped on it, and then you turn it over and you look at the back for damage. How many times have you been out in the field and been able to turn a shingle over to see if it's damaged or not? Never, right? You can't do it. You can't do it. So what makes our test a little bit different at IBHS is that all of our damage investigations or damage analysis is on the top. So we look at dents, depth of dents, ridges, and granule loss. Those are visual cues that you can easily identify whether something's damaged or not. So anyway, companies are starting to pay attention to that. Atlas in particular has invested a ton of research and development dollars into trying to figure out how to help with those common sources of failure. And they're doing a great job.
Love it. Fred, my favorite thing about your program is that it's the details behind the scenes that matter, and that you can take a 10-year-old production builder house and you can add a giant amount of resistance to storms and to damage to this house by following your program. And ring shank nails are not particularly expensive. The tape used on seams, not particularly expensive, but it's getting the details right that's important. And you need to make sure that your roofer is on board with this as well, right? Because if the roofer doesn't do these things, the wind event happens, the storms come, that's when the damage occurs. And it almost, at some point, Atlas is sponsoring this video, but it almost doesn't matter as much the shingle. It's everything underneath the shingle.
Well, when it comes to the way the homeowner is going to live in their house, yeah, it's the stuff that's underneath. And look, you and I have been building houses a long time. We have always been in this business to build a good product. The majority of roofing contractors out there are exactly the same. They're just trying to do a good job with the products and stuff that are available. With this research that we've done and these details that we've been able to develop, the manufacturers have a lot of this good stuff too. We give folks a better opportunity to deliver a higher quality product. And like you said, I mean, unfortunately, most people think that how you weather a disaster, no pun intended, but how you weather a disaster is really a matter of fate. Right. But it's not. It's a matter of how good's your plan and what are the details that you're following. Because if you have a good plan and you're paying attention to critical details at the right time, you can deliver a wonderful product without driving the budget out of control.
Absolutely. Now that is, since you mentioned budget, a lot of times asphalt shingle jobs are very budget driven and people will choose based on cost. How can people find a good roofer who's willing to do these details or specify these details? Any advice on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we've got a great training program on fortifiedwise.com. It's a 2.5 hour training program there for roofing contractors. It's only about $100. It's about 10 modules. It's self-paced. And we also have a Spanish language version of that training available as well. So yeah, those resources are there. As I mentioned before, on our website, we've got great details that are available to you. And I do want to be clear that we don't expect everybody to build houses like in Austin, like they would out there on the coast in Corpus Christi, right? I mean, we have adjusted the standard to be appropriate for where you are. Smart. But if you don't start with the goal of being wind resistant, you're taking a real risk, and the family who's going to live there is trusting you as a professional to make good decisions on their behalf.
That's right.
And that's something that I take very seriously. I know you do too.
All right, Fred, so we talked about a lot of requirements with nailing, with underlayments. What is this going to cost people? Can you give me any idea?
Yeah, I mean, on a roof like this, we're talking about like 5 to 10% of the total job cost. So it really does not add up to a lot. I mean, I know that percentage sounds healthy, but in terms of real dollars, it's not a significant amount.
Yeah, it's not that much. So if someone's getting more than one roof bid and someone's bidding it with the Fortified program and someone's not, man, for that little amount of money to know that you're protected if that storm comes, I mean, that's the difference between a house that after a big storm has all their belongings on the curb, the drywall's being ripped out, versus another house that has minor or no damage, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been a builder a long time, but in my new capacity, I've been doing this 10 years now at Fortified. I've gone out post-disaster across the country, and there's nothing more heartbreaking than seeing a family with all their stuff at the curb. It didn't have to be that way. Oh. And when I talk about it being an insignificant amount of money, I know that every dollar is a real dollar. Yeah. And as a contractor, it's hard for me to sell anything that's above what my competitor's going to sell. Yep. But what you're selling is peace of mind. The other thing that you're doing is you're giving people the freedom to make a decision. For example, if somebody lives at the coast and they've got to evacuate, they don't have to wait. They know their house is going to be okay.
Yeah.
They can get out.
That's right.
You know, and it just really, it saves people time, it saves people disruption, and it saves people money in the long run.
Man, you guys are doing good work, Fred. Let's transition to the Atlas guys and let's talk about some of their shingle tech. Hey, Paul, how's it going, man?
Hey, good, man. How you doing, buddy?
Good.
Good to see you.
So, guys, this is Paul from Atlas Shingles. He's the product manager. Paul, talk to me about this Storm Master shingle here and what makes this shingle able to withstand what Mother Nature's going to throw at it.
That's a great question, Matt. And you know what really makes us stand apart is Core 4 technology. You go ahead and bust that thing open. We'll take a closer look at it.
Okay.
But we have Core 4 technology, which is an evolution of SBS modified asphalt, which most of our competitors and shingle manufacturers are using out there today. We use a Core 4 modified asphalt. It gives you a lot of different advantages over SBS.
Okay.
So you have flexibility. You have you have a different polymer, of course, on there. You have it can handle thermal shock a little bit better. You know, and then you have the weather core. So it has a lot of features actually built into this shingle. So let's take a look at it.
Okay, so this looks like just a regular shingle, but this is that top-rated one and the in the testing from IBHS, right?
That's right. This is the top-rated one. They did an impact rating study on all impact-rated shingles that meet a level 4, right? So it's level 1 through 4, and 4 always being the highest and can withstand the most impacts. And they did a study on that and see how the shingles actually perform in the field. So they took it right out of distribution, right? Just like a contractor or a homeowner would. And these passed with flying colors. They were top of list, top of the charts.
So what do you guys do as a shingle manufacturer? That's interesting. That shows Miami-Dade County approved on there.
Absolutely.
What's the secret sauce, or what can you tell us, or what are you allowed to tell us that makes these different?
So the secret sauce in our Storm Master shingles is going to be our 4-core technology. Like I mentioned earlier, we've really evolved SBS technology. We're using a completely different proprietary formulation that we own with our vendors that we actually put in here as our secret sauce, as you want to say. So we went from SBS to a Core 4 technology, which is drastically different in the market today, and it gives us a lot of that. Not necessarily here in Austin, Texas, but when you're up north, you get that flexibility in cold weather. You can install it down to 0 degrees. It has the thermal shock capabilities. So, for example, we're here. It's 11:30 and it's 95 degrees outside already. Imagine a thunderstorm coming through and shocking that roof. The shingles move, right? So what happens typically is granules pop off. This will actually protect that. It has a memory. It can go back and forth.
And is this shingle thicker, or is there anything different in the kind of center of the shingle than other competitors?
It is a little bit thicker just because of the modified asphalt that we use. So it's going to be a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier, but the actual base material, fiberglass, asphalt, granules, it's all the same basically than any other shingle, but it does have some weight differences. Using a modified asphalt, our Core 4 technology is going to be a little bit heavier, a little bit thicker. We also have it built in here with Scotchgard protector in here as well, but from the base fiberglass mat on up, the construction for all asphalt shingles are basically the same.
Okay, now talk to me about wind resistance. This part right here that's going to seal from the next course looks like it's got a little different sauce on there than the standard product. How is this kind of bonding to itself so that wind can't uplift these shingles?
It does. That is a great question. That's really what we really do a fantastic job at. A lot of the shingles out there today, you'll see the seal line on the back of the shingle, and it seals directly to the front face of the shingle. And a lot of times that goes onto a granular surface, and we know what happens to granulars over time. They pop off, right? So what we did is we put a double seal line on the front face of the shingle. So when you put your next layer on top of there, so say you're installing shingles this way, your seal line is actually adhering directly to the glass mat, so it's becoming one. We have a 4-nail, 130-mile-an-hour wind protection on this shingle. It goes up to 150-mile-an-hour wind protection. Of course, when you have storms that bad, right, there's other things to worry about than the wind, at that point. But it seals directly to the fiberglass mat.
And then this plastic spacer that's on there, or this plastic piece, all that's doing is when you're sending the bundle out, it's keeping it from sticking to that shingle, right?
That's exactly right. That's all that does. It prevents the shingles from sticking in the bundle.
Yeah, because these are going to end up being really sticky.
Really, really tight.
And they're really going to hold to each other. That's how you're able to get to what wind wind class is this going to be?
We have, you know, I mean, we're up, you know, we do all the AS team standards. We do, you know, up to a Class H wind performance up to 150 mile an hour. We'll give you a warranty up to 150 mile an hour wind protection on
Dang, 150 miles an hour. That's a lot of wind.
That's a lot of wind, absolutely.
Now, what else you guys have technology-wise? Because you guys have something I'm seeing with 3M's Scotchgard on here. What is that doing for my shingles?
Yeah, so 3M Scotchgard, we partnered with Scotchgard or with 3M a number of years ago. Let's call it 10 years ago, just to round out the numbers. And you know, what we have to do to abide by Scotchgard protector and those types of things on our shingles, we have to use a minimum of a 10% copper blend on our shingles, and it has to be evenly distributed throughout the entire shingle itself. And what that does is we're able to allow the only in the market true lifetime warranty against black stains in streets caused by algae.
Interesting. So that copper that's in here is resisting that algae growth, so those black streaks aren't happening.
Absolutely. It's not going to happen. We installed over 1 million roofs with Scotchgard protector and have not had one claim.
Holy cow, that's amazing. 1 million roofs and no black streaks.
No black streaks.
That's pretty awesome.
Yep. You know, and it's, you know, it's really a benefit to the homeowner, right? You know, when they pick a shingle, they're picking the color. Mm-hmm. It can be a weathered wood, it can be a black, it can be a gray, it can be a light color. And if the shingle is going to change colors in 3 or 4 years, right, it really defeats the purpose. Sure. So it's really the shingle that you pick or the color that you pick is the color that you keep throughout a lifetime.
That's good stuff, man.
Absolutely.
Hey, Paul, we talked about the Scotchgard, we talked about the sealant layer and the wind rating. What else do I need to know about these shingles? Yeah,
so, you know, we designed this shingle for the contractor in mind, especially with our length. We're using a 42-inch shingle, guys, and this is much bigger than a standard 39 and fraction, right, 3/8 or something you might see with our competitors. So we have a true 42-inch shingle with a 6-inch exposure. So what does that mean to contractors? That's your next question. Yeah. You know, I'd imagine. So what that means for the contractors is a square is a square. So 3 bundles is a square. What you're using, because we have a larger shingle, a 42-inch format with a 6-inch exposure, 8 less shingles per square being installed on your roof.
That's pretty cool.
Right. So say a 30 square roof. You know, 30 times 8 is 120 less shingles that they got to actually hammer down onto the roof.
And now I can actually do an easy bundle count to know if I've got what I've got.
Easy bundle count. We also incorporated a, like I said, a 6-inch exposure. So when you're snapping your chalk lines, right, you want to get the lines straight. Mm-hmm. And a typical exposure on shingles is 5 3/8 or something around there. So just imagine, what is 5 3/8 times 3?
Oh my gosh, all the math.
Right.
Way easier to go 6, 12, 18, 24.
That's exactly where I was going with that. So when you're snapping chalk lines, you're not cheating at all, right? So you're getting your maximum exposure using less shingles on the roof. And we use less shingles on the roof. We talked about our 4-nail 130 mile wind protection. Mm-hmm. That's on a 40 square job. That's roughly 6,000 less nail penetrations in your deck, and that's really for the homeowner, right? Because that's where water is going to leak if it leaks.
So this big 42-inch shingle needs 4 nails in it.
Only needs 4 nails.
Wow, that's impressive.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's really cool.
Yep. And then the last thing we have that's really beneficial, right? We talk about waste factors. We talk about saving money, right? You want to get the most use out of every bundle. So we have a 7-course, 6-inch, no waste offset.
Holy cow.
So what that means is you're gonna start your offset from your roof from right to left or left to right, and you're gonna take your 6 inches off. So the first shingle is gonna be full, and then your 6 inches, the next one's gonna be 6 inches off, 12 inches off, 18 inches. Instead of throwing that into the dumpster, you're gonna reuse those and create a 7-course no waste offset. So you're not throwing stuff in the dumpster. You can save 3 to 5% just on your waste factor like that.
How about that?
Absolutely.
Impressive. Yep. Paul, how can people find out more about Atlas?
So they can visit our website at atlasroofing.com, or they can reach out to local distribution. We're all over the country. We are east of the Rocky Mountains, and we're available. Just look us up. Call your local distribution. If you have a contractor, they can certainly reach out to some of our sales reps.
Love it. Thanks for the tech, Paul. Appreciate it, man.
All right, buddy. No problem.
Guys, thanks to Atlas for sponsoring, and for Fred and the guys at Fortified really schooling us on the details for a well-built house that's going to weather the worst of the storms. If you're not currently a Build Show subscriber, guys, hit that subscribe button below. You know we've got new content here every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Otherwise, I'll see you next time on the Build Show.